All right, thank you for coming back for another day of finishing these notes for Unit 11, solving equations. We are going to do the bottom of the backside, but before we get started, I want to quickly review the key pieces of this unit. In order to solve these linear equations, what we need to do is to follow a few steps and a couple simple rules and a goal. Remember, our goal is to get x alone, but in order to do that we have to keep the equation balanced. This is a balance or a scale where you weigh things out. We have Snowy the owl and the snowball, and right now it's not a balanced equation. There can't be an equal sign, so we got to figure out how many snowballs it takes to counterbalance Snowy. Here's the second snowball. Oh, they're still lighter. Here's the third snowball. I'd say that's pretty balanced. This equation's equal. If we move a snowball to this side and put it over here, it's unbalanced. Remember that today when you're balancing your equations. It can't be balanced if you take something away from one side, but don't do the same to the other. So, if I put a snowball over here, I still need the original snowball here. But if I added a snowball here, I'm going to need to add one here to keep it balanced. If I take a snowball away from here, I also have to take a snowball away from here to keep it balanced. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. As we look at these more difficult special cases, remember the goal is to get x alone. How do we do that? We do the same thing to both sides by doing the opposite. The opposite of subtract is add. The opposite of divide is multiply. What we need to do, remember, the goal is to get x alone. How do we do that? We do the same thing to both sides by doing the opposite. The opposite of subtract is add. The opposite of divide is multiply. What we need to do is do SADMAP. When we're dealing with these two-step equations, we need to start with the addition and subtraction, move that over first. Then we work on separating the x from the number through multiplication or division. This says multiply, so we would divide.
All right, everybody, who's sick of listening to Mr. Benson? It's time to take a break, get up, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, grab a snack, do 5 jumping jacks, and come back ready to learn some math.
One thing I realized is that on your sheet, I made a mistake. I forgot the order of SADMAP, and I put MD before SA. So I need you to reverse these and reverse the symbols. We're going to start when we're undoing these two-steppers by starting with undoing the add and subtract, move to multiply and divide, and if we were to continue on in another math class, we would deal with the squares and the parentheses. But for right now, we're just going to do add, subtract, and multiply and divide. So on this one, if our goal is to get x alone, we first need to start with doing the opposite of plus 5. That's right. It's a minus 5. And like Snowy the owl and the snowballs, what we do to one side, we have to do to the other to keep this balanced. When we subtract 5 from 5, we get 0. We can just cross that off. When we subtract 11 from 5, we get 6. We're going to bring down the 2 in the x and the equals sign. X is not alone right now. It's got a positive 2 attached to it. So we need to do the opposite of 2 times x. The opposite here is the opposite of times, so we're going to divide both sides by 2. Remember, a fraction symbol is the same as a division symbol. That's going to be more common now in algebra, that we use fraction symbols instead of the line with the 2 dots. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so really we're dividing by 1. When you multiply by 1, it doesn't change anything. When you divide by 1, it doesn't change anything. So we can just cross these out and we're left with x here. What is 6 divided by 2? Remember, top number always goes in our calculator first, followed by the bottom number. Yes, that answer is 3. As you see, the problem worked out here for you. The first step was to subtract 5 from both sides. We got 6 as well. Divide both sides by 2, and that answer is 3. Now let's check it. We say that x is 3, so anytime we see an x, we're going to put a set of parentheses. And then whatever we think that value is, we're going to put it inside the parentheses. So this says 2 times x, and 2 parentheses 3 means 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 5, when I put it back into my calculator, is 11. So yes, that works out. You're going to try this one. Remember, our first step when we're undoing the equation and solving for x is to do PEMDAS backwards. SADMAP. Sorry, 16 from both sides. This becomes 0. What's 64 minus 16? You do it, I'll do it, and see what we get. Make sure you're doing it too. Bring down the 4 and the x and the equal sign. See, that comes down here. What do I do to get x alone? This says 4 times x. When a number is written next to a letter, it means multiply. I'm supposed to do the opposite operation, so the opposite of multiply is divide. I'm going to divide both sides by 4. This fraction bar I'm going to start to use instead of these dots because it's quicker. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so x is left here. What I do to the left side, I need to keep it balanced, so I got to do to the right. So 48 divided by 4, when I put it into my calculator, I get x equals 12. I'm going to circle this with a heart. Crazy heart. Set my work apart.
All right, everybody. Who's sick of listening to Mr. Benson? It's time to take a break. Get up, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, grab a snack, do 5 jumping jacks, and come back ready to learn some math.
Alone. What do I do first? I got to do the opposite. I'm doing SADMAP this time because I'm solving. So I start with the addition and subtraction part. I need to ask myself, what can I move? Well, the x gets moved last, or what's attached to the x gets moved last, so I can move the 8. So I ask myself, what kind of 8 is this? It's a negative 8. What's the opposite of negative 8? Positive 8. So we're going to add 8 to both sides. Plus 8. Plus 8. Negative 8 plus a positive 8 equals 0. That's what I want to do. I want to eliminate that. And what's 34 plus 8? 42. Right. So I'm going to bring down the rest of the equation. I'm going to bring down the minus sign and the 7 and the x. What do I do next? That's right, I need to do the opposite of negative 7 times x. Now this is a little tricky, but we need to ask ourselves, what's the opposite of times? Not what's the opposite of negative 7. The mathematical process that's happening here is multiply. So it's the negative 7 that's multiplying by the x. I need to do the opposite of multiply. The opposite of multiply is divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 7. The negative is part of the 7. It's the division that's the opposite. So what's 42 divided by negative 7? Negative 6, that's right. Now the x is alone, so 6 equals x, or x equals negative 6 is what I meant. Let's double check. You would do your math over here. Add 8 to both sides. We have a negative 7x and a 42. Divide by negative 7 on both sides. We got 6. Good. Does it work out? Let's see. We're going to take negative 6 and put it in here. Now we have to do PEMDAS forwards. When we're calculating, we do the order of operations forwards. So we start with negative 7 times negative 6. And that's a positive 42. Bring down the negative 8, the positive for the 42. Put these together, and it does give us 34. So that's correct. Now you try this one. Remember that that negative belongs to the 2, but the operation here is negative 2 times x. So I've enlarged this for you, but this is the last sample problem on your sheet. We need to do what? This is one that you're supposed to try on your own. Yep, you got to move the negative 14 to the other side, change it into positive 14. Has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with this value. When we add 14 to the other side, 74 plus 14. 4 plus 4 is 8. 70 plus 10 is 80. So my answer is 88. These cancel the 0, bring down the minus 2 and x. And let us not forget that that minus sign also serves as a negative sign. So that's part of the 2. So this is actually negative 2 times x. We need to do the opposite of multiply here, and that's divide. So we're going to divide both sides by, yep, negative 2. Now what's 88 divided by negative 2? You do it in your calculator. Don't wait for me. Do it in your calculator. Negative 44. Nice job. Let's circle that with a heart. Set our work apart. Have a good day.